What's up, guys? We have so much NASCAR news from this past week to go over. This is another This Week in NASCAR video, just like I did last week. But let's go through all of this news, most of it silly season, if not all, to be honest. And let's start with what you're seeing on your screen is that Front Row Motorsports has announced their 2020 lineup. They are dropping back to 2 cars instead of 3 cars. That was this year, 2019, dropping back to 2 cars, and their drivers will be Michael McDowell is staying in the 34 car, and as a rookie, John Hunter Nemechek will be in that 38 car. He drove that 36 the past 3 races this year because Tift was sick, and he will be in the 38 full-time, running for Rookie of the Year with his teammate veteran Michael McDowell in the 34 staying in that car. So we have that news now. That is another spot that Suarez is not going to be in. So where will Daniel Suarez go? It is not looking good. That is for sure, especially since we know LaJoie is going to go fast now. So, man, RCR maybe not. Stewart Haas, Xfinity, that was unlikely anyway. So we will have to see where he goes. Oh my gosh, let's go over this bombshell news. Cole Pearn is retiring from NASCAR. He's going to move back to Canada soon, and he will not be the crew chief of Martin Truex Jr. anymore, nor the crew chief of anyone, because he's retiring. So maybe this will be the downfall of Martin Truex Jr. because he is like the most just successful crew chief with Martin Truex Jr., and it's sad to see because it was such a good pairing. They got 7 wins this year, tied for their most of all time in a year, tied with their championship year in 2017. They raced with Furniture Row, with Toyota, doing great. Jumped over to Gibbs, best car there this year. Jumped together, so that it's just really sad to see, to be honest. And I hate to see it, but it is for his family, and that's what is good, and I respect that. So that's really good that he did that for his family, to see them grow up. And the 24/7 lifestyle, he says, it's just too much. He's going to miss his family and all that. Now, here's some really good news. On Monday and Tuesday at ISM Raceway in Phoenix, Joey Logano was testing the next-gen prototype. And my gosh, they were doing lots of things with it. Once again, good reviews, just like Austin Dillon did at Richmond a couple months ago. And this car was a prototype made from RCR in collaboration with NASCAR. It's no OEM, it's just a prototype, generic body, plain body. So let's talk about what they were doing. So it looked like Jackson Storm from Cars 3. Let's start with that. Second of all, they were changing spoilers. They had the normal big spoiler they had from this year and next year, but then they were changing to a tiny spoiler, just a little, I don't even know what to say. It was tiny. And then they went back to the big ones. And that was on the first day they had the big. The second day they had the small one. They were changing everything. And this car, man, it looks so futuristic. They're really pushing on that next gen part, and you look at it, the front looks like a Camaro, the back looks like a Mustang, and they still got 5 lug nuts on it. They got the 18-inch wheels, the fat tires, which makes it turn better and have more grip. You actually sit lower in it. The brakes are apparently really, really good, and it stops really, really good, as according to Joey Logano. And it's got the rear diffuser on the back, the aero ducts on the hood moved a little different so it doesn't mess too much with the sponsors like it did in this all-star race. And it's of course got that notch splitter still, but that diffuser, man, that diffuser is really interesting. It should help clean that dirty air out so that car behind them can pass better. And and more grip with them tires. It's really interesting what's going to go on. They only did single car testing. In January, they will do the next test in Homestead. No driver announced yet. Probably be a Toyota driver. They did Chevy, Ford, probably Toyota, probably Kyle Busch. I'd love to see it because he'd be brutally honest of if this car's really good, then you'd actually know if he said it was good. So that's really interesting of this next gen car, changing spoilers, and that rear diffuser's definitely really interesting on that car. And I don't know. We'll have to wait and see when it debuts in 2021. It should be, and it's going to be cost effective for the small teams. And going along with cost effective, that rumor of cutting out live pit stops in some Xfinity and Truck Series races, most likely the non-double headers with the Cup Series, like Road America, let's say, or Canadian Tire for trucks, may not have live pit stops just to cut the cost for the small teams. They got to cut the cost so they don't have to. I mean, they'd have to lay off people, but is that worth not having the entire team shut down? So I guess it is, but I still kind of hate to see it. All right, next set of news. This one's kind of a small one. Ross Chastain plans to still race in all three series. He is not backing down. In 2020, we already know he's going for points full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the 10 for Kaulig Racing. But he plans to still do all three, even though going into these two news is Ty Majeski has been confirmed to drive full-time in the Gander Outdoors Truck Series in the number 45 truck for Nice Motorsports with Phil Gould as his sponsor, as his crew chief, and that's the truck Chastain ran for this year. Ty Majeski going full-time. He did one race for them in the 44 at Phoenix later in this year, and Brennan Poole driving is going to go full-time in the Cup Series in the 15 car for Premium Motorsports as a rookie. That's really interesting to see there because Chastain drove that car most of the time this year as well. So Brennan Poole going full-time Cup in the 15 for Premium Motorsports has that sponsor VIP. Ty Majeski going full-time in the Truck Series. Phil Gould still going to be the crew chief full-time in the Truck Series in that 45 for Nice Motorsports. He will run for a championship. More Truck Series news. DGR Crosley is switching from Toyota to Ford. It's kind of been alluded to, confirmed now, and that's really interesting to see. They're going into the Ford Performance, kind of letting Ford drivers in that pipeline come up through the ranks with that Ford development program. And it seems like Hailie Deegan, not confirmed yet, but seems like Hailie Deegan will be driving for them. It should be announced Tuesday. Even though she's a loyal Toyota driver, it seems like she'll be switching to Ford in that Ford development program, possibly get up to Stewart-Haas in the Cup Series, because Kevin Harvick's kind of her mentor per se, and he's a Ford for Stewart-Haas Racing. So let's go more Truck Series news. Man, this was just like loaded with Truck Series news. Kyle Busch Motorsports has announced their crew chiefs for next year. Mike Hillman Jr. will be the crew chief of Rafael Lassard in that Ford truck. Rudy Fugle, of course, will be the crew chief of that 18 for Christian Eckes. And new Danny Stockman will be the crew chief of that 51 truck, the three full-time trucks. And the 51 will have a variety of drivers like Chandler Smith and Kyle Busch. And Danny Stockman came over from crew chief of RCR in the Cup Series for Austin Dillon. Bojangles will no longer be the sponsor of the Darlington race, the Southern 500, no longer. So that is interesting to see there. It seems like they are taking down the Homestead stands in turn 1, which I don't like that. The sun will be terrible if they don't finish what they're building by March. And what they're building is apparently like a big fan area, not really a hotel, but where you could go up there if you pay a lot more money into a big building and look around and watch the race from there with air conditioning, of course. And now, I wouldn't say this is completely confirmed, but multiple sources are pointing to this, is that Chase Briscoe is staying with Stewart-Haas Racing with Fred Biaggi full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So that's nice to see. He'll be in his second year with that team full-time. So Chase Briscoe staying in that 98 most likely, could possibly go to that 00, but I'd say 98 still no driver for that 00 announced yet. Felix Sabates is retiring in the 2020 season for being an owner, so he will no longer be with Chip Ganassi Racing. He is retiring from NASCAR ownership. GMS, we already knew their full-time driver lineup in the Truck Series since they shut down their Xfinity team, but we just got the crew chiefs announced and we got the numbers announced. Let's start with the crew chiefs. Chad Norris will be crew chief of Brett Moffitt. Chad Walter will be crew chief of Tyler Ankrum. Kevin Bonomanian will be crew chief for Zane Smith. And Jeff Stankiewicz will be crew chief for Sheldon Creed like normal. Sheldon Creed will be staying in that 2 truck. Zane Smith will be going to the 21 truck. And Tyler Ankrum will be going to the 26 truck. While, here's a big one, Brett Moffitt will be going to the 23 truck. So that is their numbers and crew chief. So Sam Mayer still not confirmed his number. He will be part-time, probably either the 24 or the 25. Kind of interesting. They're switching Moffitt's number from the 24 to the 23, but they say that's a special number to GMS. Timmy Hill is going to attempt the Daytona 500 for the second time, trying to make his first start in there for MBM Motorsports in that number 66. It will be a Ford Mustang with Roush Yates engine in it. And the MBM Motorsports, depending on if they make that Daytona 500, which is a big financial race, wants to race the entire season with that 66 car, even without a charter, as Timmy Hill as their primary driver. So that's really interesting there. I mean, if they can make it, not every race has 40 drivers coming. Actually, barely any of them do, except for the Daytona 500. And yeah, they want to go full time. And also, it's confirmed that Toyota, oh my gosh, a Toyota, the number 46 for MBM Motorsports, will attempt to also make the Daytona 500. No driver or sponsor announced yet for that team. RCR crew chiefs are announced. Randall Burnett and Justin Alexander are going to be the Cup crew chiefs. Burnett for Reddick, Alexander for Austin Dillon. And here is the news we got today. My gosh. James Davison, sports car driver from Australia, will be in the Daytona 500 and in the Indy 500 this year. Really interesting, both for Hayward Motorsports with Jonathan Bird Racing. So that's really interesting. Apparently, the Cup Series car will be made by Rick Ware Racing, so it'll probably be a Chevy, possibly a Ford. No manufacturer announced and no number announced, but his sponsor for the Cup Series race will be Oil Fire, and that'll also be on the Indy car as well for the Indy 500. Not the primary sponsor, though. And that's really interesting. Same team in Indy and in Cup. So he's did 4 Xfinity races for Joe Gibbs, all on road courses, but apparently, even though usually you're going to have to do some super speedway races before you do Cup super speedway races, looking at his resume with all of these other things that he's done, they approved him. So that's really interesting there. So that's the news we have from this week in NASCAR. Oh, also, Go Bowling has renewed their partnership as the sponsor for the Richmond NASCAR Xfinity Series race, which we've seen on, Cole Custer's car a long time. So thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for 93 subscribers, and bye-bye.